Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of African Drums.
This is Roll Call for this edition of African Drums. The African drums are sounding.
Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of African Drums, the television organ of the Cuffy 250 Committee, an organization dedicated to the empowerment of the African Guyanese community through education and the encouragement of self-activity. I am Elsie Harry, and I will be your host for this evening's program. The state of youth in Guyana has long been a point of interest among those who are serious about the future of the country. While some have spoken of turning things over to young people, others have concentrated on the actual condition of these young people, the challenges they face in a world and country that have become more knowledge-based and technological, but more violent and individualistic. The state of youth in Guyana. That's our program on this evening's African Drums. We have in studio an esteemed guest who works in the area of youth empowerment. Reverend Nicole Ashwood, a Jamaican and the Education and Mission Secretary of the Caribbean and North America Council for Mission, is part of a team who is presently visiting Guyana to plan for a youth camp in 2015. A former teacher turned pastor, she was the keynote speaker at the 175th anniversary commemoration of the Congregational Church in Buxton. My other guest, Sanya Beharry, a Trinidadian, is the young adult representative for the same organization as Reverend Ashwood, Caribbean and North America Council for Mission. Reverend Ashwood and Sanya, welcome to African Drums.
Thank you for having us.
You see, Reverend Ashwood, I'm prophesying into your life. I called you
glory.
Dr. Ashwood.
And I receive it in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay, let us begin the discussion with a very frank question. Are the youth in the Caribbean in crisis?
The Caribbean is in crisis. And unfortunately, based on the state of affairs in the Caribbean at present, it's not only the youth who are in crisis, but adults as well. And I don't know that we have been doing as good a job as we should as adults to make way for those who need a word of encouragement, of direction and hope in this season.
Okay. What do you have to say?
Maybe I'm the eternal optimist in this one, because even though you have those spaces of darkness and you have the violence and the crime and the individualism that overshadows all the good, there is still good, and I think we need to hold on to that and be able to support and lift up the youth who are willing to make a difference, and only then we can see the change. So crisis is kind of irrelevant.
But remember that in Chinese, crisis equals opportunity and threat. And it is what we do with the crisis that makes the difference. So yes, there is a crisis. We have not done as much as we should as adults, and yes, I do agree with Sanya that we need to lift up and encourage those who are in need of a word of hope in this season.
Okay, you mentioned threat and opportunity. What are some of the threats that these young people are facing in the Caribbean? The major ones, because clearly there are several. Just tell us about some of the major ones.
Start with oh boy, where do we start?
Unemployment.
The just violence and that culture of gangs, individualism and greed, I think, is one of the things that is destroying our youth.
A dearth of positive role models, perhaps. It's not that we don't have role models, and we have role models from the North. We have role models from the Caribbean. You go from Suriname all the way up to Canada, and there's an abundance of role models. But what exactly is being modeled is perhaps the root of some of the threats that we face. When we have artists who are being venerated, the Vibes Cartel, and as much as I love soca, the Michelle and those kind of folks who the common assertion is, let's denigrate women and let's lift up the gun and I take whatever I want by force. It is not necessarily the kind of atmosphere that we really want for our young people, especially in an era where we're saying live, find hope, build and make a better tomorrow for those who are yet to come.
So like for me, I have a problem with YOLO culture.
You only live once.
Because it's so propagated in our media, especially rum drinking, alcoholism, partying, living for the now without any respect for what the future brings or any responsibility for future generations who come after you. So that whole idea of, you know, doing whatever you want whenever you want without any accountability, I think is a serious problem.
Eat, drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. But what happens to those who remain tomorrow? Ziggy Marley perhaps puts it well, tomorrow people, where's your past? The problem is that while he speaks somewhat prophetically in that regard, and he insists that the youth remember that there's a past, there's also the past that needs to prepare for the future. Because if we don't have a positive monument for those who come, what do they learn from, what do they build on, and what do they look toward? And as Sanya said, that's where the problem with the YOLO culture comes. But yeah.
Okay. Do you think that it's actually a problem with the YOLO culture or what they do with the culture? Because I'm thinking to myself, the thing, you only live once.
Yeah.
If you took it and you made it positive, I only have one life, so let me not waste it. Then that could be a positive spin on it. Is it up to us as young people, you as Reverend, to put a positive spin on these types of things that are propagated?
I hear you on the you as Reverend, but it has to go way beyond Reverend. It has to come from inside, and then, because if you don't have that change in mindset, and as she rightfully said, there are limited positive role models. So you can't say, well, look to Pastor will tell us what to do. No, it don't work so. So yes, I think it can work if you are able to put that positive spin on it.
I was at a funeral 2 weeks running actually for the same person, and for the first tribute that we did, which we did actually on behalf of the Caribbean and North America Council for Mission, someone said, yeah, I actually thought of that phrase when I thought about her, but I thought it was so common. But it's this one that's written by Etienne de Gruyere or some such French monk, and he says, I shall pass this way but once. If there is any good that I can do, let me do it now. And he goes on and on and on, for I shall only pass this way once. And it is a recognition that yes, there is this fork in the road, but how do I move forward? What do I do with that which is in front of me? And yes, it is for us to say, I am going to take it and I'm going to run with it. How do I run? Do I run with positivity? Or do I run and say, Lord, nothing no go on for me. Lord, why should I do? Why do I look out? This morning we were having a intense discussion in our hotel room, and we were looking at this whole concept of the 90 and 9 versus the 1. And I had to say, let me tell you something. You see, this Christian life, it's not easy, because I don't always want to go after the 1. I got 90 over here, 99 to be precise, as Sanya is reminding me. Why should I leave them to go rescue the one. But in the concept of you only live once is that when that one recognizes that I only got one life to live, so party over here, live and spot over there, yeah, it is not Reverend Ashwood who is going to be going. It has to be Nikki recognizing the humanity in the one and deciding that I love that one even more than I love the 99. And while I go in, pray to God that when I come back the 99 is there, because if the 99 stay like me, one of them could have gone a road. Part of the issue we have in the you only live once, eat, drink and be merry is that I live for me and me alone, and it is on us, as Sanya has said, to move it beyond the I for I man own self to we all are in this space. For as the word says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness, not the peace, but the fullness thereof. And I think part of the issue is that we take the Genesis text and we hear what is it now? Be fruitful and multiply and subdue, and we hear subdue and it says to us, okay, go on, bum Elsie, bum Sandy, and I'm gonna be the only one. And we can't have that attitude, because guess what, one hand can't clap. See, you don't get quite the effect. Let's try it now. Different song.
Okay, so if we were to narrow it down from the Caribbean to Guyana, coming to Guyana, what would you say characterizes the Guyanese situation, to put it like that?
That's mad because we just had that conversation. And I think I liked actually Sanya's response. So I'll have you start, and then if need be I pick up.
Actually what I was asked earlier was to do a comparison of Trini youth and Guyanese youth.
Okay.
And I'm speaking as an outsider and an insider and all kind of side of this one. I find Guyanese youth more mature and ready to deal with the world than Trini youth. So they've had to grow up at a much earlier age than Trini youth. So by 16 you finish CXC, you're out job hunting, or you go into UG, and then you're making your way in the world because you don't have a choice socially, economically, but to do that. Your Trini youth still have an option, and this is not to generalize all Trini youth, but most of them still have the option of remaining at home, going to university, job hunting, but having that security of home, of being able to return, so you could remain in a not as mature stage until you are finished with that stage of your life. So in your 20s, and you're now having to deal with renting or having your own vehicle and dealing with bills and all of those realities of life that a Guyanese youth would have had to deal with 5-6 years much earlier. So there's that difference in attitudes and maturity that's very, very clear about your youth. Along with that is the sense of, I would say, hopelessness, that having lived this reality for all of their lives, that they don't feel like there is going to be any change in what Guyana is today, especially when it comes to corruption and when it comes to job hunting. And you know, it's only if you have a friend in the place that you can find a job. And even if you have the qualifications, there's absolutely no guarantee you are going to get that job, even if you are the most qualified, well-interviewed, well-tested candidate. And even if you do get the job, you know, it's not nearly as well paying as a job you would get outside of Guyana. And here comes the lure of migration and all of the empty houses in Guyana. So all of your best and your brightest
live elsewhere,
go outside. And where do you grow from there if those are the ones who leave?
And in the midst of that, there is still that tiny flicker of hope. So there is the maturity that's born of pain, but there's also that maturity that comes from understanding earth runnings, and it's a maturity that says, boy, nothing now go on for me, so me I go make something go on for me. And when I compare the Guyana context with the Jamaica, Trinidad, Grenada context, I see a case where Guyana hasn't gone quite to the level of Jamaica. Forgive me, Jamaicans. But there is not so much of that materialism that characterizes Jamaica, Trinidad, and even to a lesser extent Barbados. In Grenada, there's this almost joie de vie, simple lifestyle, and I'm not talking simple countrified or dumbed down, but Grenadian have a little, we have a little tattoo, and we go live in the tattoo, and we go make life. It may not be easy, but we make life. In Trinidad, it's mommy and daddy have a tattoo, and we go live off mommy and daddy tattoo, and we make life. In Jamaica, it's you have a tattoo, and that tattoo bigger than mine. I want your tattoo. I will take your tattoo, and I try to make life. And I mean, yes, I'm overgeneralizing. Lord, I'm so gonna get killed by my Jamaican peeps. In Guyana, it is, I need a tattoo. I don't necessarily have to go and kill somebody for the tattoo. I am not happy with the fact that Guyana is owned on everything but paper by everybody but us, and I'm not gonna get into the racial issue now, though the temptation is to look elsewhere in South America to see who owns the gold and the diamond mines in Guyana, but I'm not going there. And it's the hopelessness that says, boy, there are very limited opportunities. But in the midst of it, as Sanya said at the very beginning of our conversation, there are those who are saying, boy, hardships there are, but it have 6 major rivers. It is the land of many waters. It is the land of 6 races, and we is going to make a life nonetheless. So I think of some of my young people from the Guyana Congregational Union, the Guyana Presbyterian Church, and the Presbyterian Church of Guyana, and I think of them where they will go outside. And we were talking earlier about the fact that we find that the Guyanese youth are not necessarily as regionally aware, despite the fact that the CARICOM headquarters is in Guyana. But there is a sense of, boy, I go in, but till I go make a life, whatever that life may be. Whereas in other instances, you have youth who are saying, boy, nothing now go on for me, and somebody have to go fix it, you know, because, oh, if nobody no fix it for me, well, me have to go just take it from him and I joke him up and sort him out. So there is still that flicker of hope. So I think of Ron and Simone and Jalissa and Ramona and some of my, Angelina
and
Junan. So we're having our young adults camp 2-3 years ago. No, the one gone 2012, and we have, as part of the camp, and we're having one in 2015, but we're having the camp in 2012, and as a region we're saying we're going to be giving a prize for the person who does the most fundraising. The Guyana dollar is 200 to 1. The Jamaica dollar is almost 100 to 1 at the time. The Trinidad dollar is 6 to 1, and the EC dollar is 2.5 to 1. Right? So you have some good stats they're working with. Who is it that comes out as the top fundraiser? The Guyanese. Who is it that puts the most out, going back to the issue of maturity and a realistic view on life? She says, alright, I can't go and I can't do X, I can't do Y, but guess what? I know that if I go to the market with my 1 and 2 provisions, I can make X amount. And this child takes herself and goes and does her selling and her whatnot, and she brought it, and she brought enough, not for she alone, but she and she and she and he. And I think those are the kind of things that we have to celebrate in Guyana. We have another young lady who is helping to plan the camp for next year, and she is working a little bit outside of town, and she writes and she says, okay, y'all are coming in, tell me when you're free, I'm gonna make myself available X day or Y day. She never asked, so how you gonna get me from where I work to where you are to where you need to be? She turns up. Now, that may seem as a little thing to many folks, but when we're going to be celebrating the changes that are happening, these are the kind of things, because it is saying it is not a handout mentality where you owe me and you coming from wherever and you have all them monies and your dollar is at least 100 to 1 or 6 to 1 and mine is only 200 to 1. It is, I know I have something to contribute, and I am going to make a difference. We're coming from a lawyer's office just before coming here, and this is a young lawyer, and her thing is, I know that things aren't as it should be in Guyana, but you know what? I have a little acorn. And I'm not looking on the acorn. I am looking at the big oak tree that is coming. The oak tree not reach yet, you know. It's a little tattoo. But right now, she's looking past the tattoo into what can be. And I don't think it's only the females. And yes, we tend to be focusing on the females. But I think the same would exist for males. And I've been looking around Guyana, and I've not seen half as many young men on the street corner planting yam in their hand middle. Sorry, Edos. In the hand middle. As I see in many other places, including Trinidad.
Yeah.
And for me, that's saying that there is hope. What we have to do now is go back to the days of coal stove. And blow with the brush, and when you see the one like a fire, you put another coal of it, and you build a hope until we have a raging fire. We can't wait on politicians for that. We need people like you who are willing to come on a program like this and say, yeah, Cuffy was back in the days, but as a young person, I am invested in this country, and I'm willing to talk to these two strange people and make this difference for my country.
Okay. So I'm glad to hear that you see, in the midst of the struggle and the pain, some hope, because we've just seen some statistics that says that Guyana is the country with the highest level of suicide
in the world.
And you sighed, so I know you have things to say about this particular issue. So
it's something that is so very painful to hear, because I deal with a lot of counseling with youth in my own context, and I hate that our older people don't realize what our young people go through. So they say, nah man, you're fine, depression, mental illness doesn't exist, it's all in your head, do something and you'll get over it. And you don't take it seriously that these young people come from broken homes, broken situations, they don't know how to deal with it, they don't have that role model to go to get advice. And this is where it ends up. It ends up in your substance abuse and in your suicide. And from the youth that I know, I've had the ones that give me the call or the message and say, I don't know what to do tonight or what I'm going to do tonight. And I think we really need to open our eyes and be able to see these situations of our youth who are crying out for help in everything but words.
And sometimes in words.
And sometimes in words. And we need to step up and really embrace these youth and let them know people care. It's not that you're just another statistic of this world. You are a person who is worth something. You have value as just a human being.
I want to embellish Sanya's statement by I want to raise a few vignettes. I went to the Presbyterian Church of Canada's assembly in February, March. February, March. Okay. PCC. Okay. And the representative from one of the Aboriginal nations was there, and he made a very profound statement. They were speaking about the whole apology of the PCC, Presbyterian Church Canada, for the ill treatment of First Nations people, the Aboriginals, in the special schools that they had for them a century or two ago. And he said, people just say, you know, these natives need to get over themselves, the Aboriginals need to get over themselves. But part of the problem we face with our young people now is that the parents of the young people don't know what it is to be a family, because they were uprooted from family, they were taken to boarding schools, they were placed in a regimental life, they had no parental figure, and then when they were to marry and have children or whatever, they were just plopping out children like, and having no clue about relationships, about family, about being close, about showing emotions or anything positive. So yes, I agree that in part the adults aren't doing and saying, but I think sometimes we fail to realize that the adults don't necessarily know what to do. I look at the fact that, yeah, there is this suicide belt in Guyana, Suriname, but you know what? What alternatives are we offering our people? When the solution to a runaway slave was to kill him or to beat him 2 inches short of his life, when the punishment for an Indian, them coolie people, was to tell them that you're no better than a black person, and see, we could get work out of them for nothing, but you're not worth a damn thing, pardon my French. Is it any wonder that our people really don't know how to cope? And unfortunately, the church, though we talk about we'll understand it by and by, I go by and by, when the Lord shall, hello, we have to live now, you know. We can't leave everything to the by and by. So the challenge is also, crisis again, opportunity and threat. The challenge is also for us as church, for us as counselors, for us as youth, and would I want to be youth, to help our folks to understand that there is more to life. On Sunday, when I was preaching, reasoning with my folks at Arundel in Buxton, I said to them, look here, you can't be mired down in the what now, go on for me. We need to start looking at what we have. But as Sanya is rightly saying, our young people and our not so young people, because we thinking that is only the youth in the 12 and up bracket, but it's the 3rd highest level of suicides in Guyana in the 25 and up bracket. So it is saying that it's a trending problem for the generational X and the millennials. But it is saying that we need to be able first to understand who we are. Then we need to understand what our issue is. And I would go now to, yes, the counseling, but I think of my brother-in-law, Roger Stewart, who is a lay pastor in Jamaica, and we had a group of, but they had this because of the change that has taken place. We had a group of young people, and Sanya, I know you hear the story already, sorry, but we had a group of young people who are from a community that in Jamaica you'd say it is Bakamoko, which means that it is on the wrong end of the social stratosphere. It is Baka God, it is forgotten, and ironically the community is called Mount Pleasant. Unemployment reigns supreme. The land is far from fertile. Running water is not the norm, so trucks come on a nearly regular basis and you buy water. They have some degree of electricity going on, and teenage pregnancy was prevalent to the point that when we did a general poll of all the children in the church up to the age of 22, none of those children's parents finished high school.
Wow.
0. I mean, one of the parents, and we're talking about the females, because half of those men not around, but for the cases where the women, we could talk to, none of them finished high school. Some got pregnant in 5th form, which would be grade 11, some got pregnant in grade 8, but the fact is they did not complete the process, right? No problem. You have the regular Caribbean style home, grandmother, great grandmother, everybody living in one house, everybody eating out the same pot. Fine. But what we fail to recognize is that when a child grows up knowing that there is not life to the end of high school, secondary school. So we would be talking about Trini youth knowing that you can play around a year and then go to university and work. Them youth in that particular community don't know anything but planning to have a child by the time, and it's like, I don't want it to happen to me, but I am not anticipating that I will be anything but barefoot and pregnant by the time I'm done, because they have no other thing to see. And I remember one Sunday my brother-in-law got a word, and I'm convinced it was straight from the Holy Spirit, and he just called the young people forward and he says, before I pray with you, let me just tell you something. Put your hand on your chest like this. I want you to put your hand over your heart, and I want you to say this, and as a matter of fact, when you go home, Every day, look in the mirror and tell yourself what I'm about to tell you. And I want you to repeat after me. So I'm inviting you two now to repeat after me. And he had them say, there is greatness in me.
There is greatness in me.
And I laughed when I said it, and I thought, oh, so cute. A year and a half later, a girl who we had on the books as getting 17% as her final average in mathematics comes to church. Passing, I tell you, I'm going on the exam, and I study maths paper, passing it hard. And I remember, you say, I'm going to say the prayer, and I look on the maths paper, and I say, look at the maths paper, pass and say, there is greatness in me. And I tell the maths paper, there is greatness in me. I get 35. 17, 35. Is not a passing grade yet, but the fact is this child is able to realize that there is more to me, as Sanya has said, than just having a baby, being barefoot and pregnant, being unable to complete high school. She has now reconfigured her life to see that there is hope. We have no job for her yet. We graduated all of 2 last year, and I am suggesting that if in Guyana we were able to have the kinds of low-key, underground mentors who are willing and able to say, there is greatness in you. I can see it. To affirm our young people. It's not going to happen overnight. And the statistics may not reach lower level suicide cases in Guyana, but it might move from 4 times the world's average to probably 3 times, to 2 times, to 1 time, to Guyana then saying to the world, come drink some of our creek water. Because if you drink the creek water, not only will you not ever stay away from Guyana, but when you come here and you drink the creek water, you're going to discover that there's greatness in you. You're going to discover that there is more to life than just saying, nothing now go on for me. It is about helping our young people to recognize that we have value. We have worth, and we have something to say. So you remember them old time thing where before you open your mouth you hear, children are seen and not heard. It is time for us to move past that lifetime, to move past that lifestyle, to move past that life way, and to go into the space where we say, talk to me. What's going on in your head? And you know what? We might just discover that the young people have stuff they could teach us too. Me? Sanya will tell you I buff she many times, but in the midst of the buff, if there's one thing Sanya knows, and my admin would say it if you were able to talk with her, they know that I am going to listen to what they say, and if I'm not prepared to listen, they have every permission and right to say, we have something to say and you need to listen. Sorry, I promised that there wouldn't be a sermon today. Sorry, Sanya. I tried.
That's fine. So during the discussion, we spoke some about the role of the church, the work that the church is doing and has to do, the role of the family in the SU. What about the education system itself, the teachers?
I hope if this program is edited, they don't edit that side. I remember going to teachers college, and I was teaching hardcore inner city. I haven't met any like that in Guyana. I think I passed one in Trinidad where it had all barbed wire around the fence. And I go to teachers college, and the teacher who is teaching us, so the lecturer, professor, whatever you call him, is going to say to me, you know, when you have the children and they won't hear, you give them time out. And I said, with all due respect, where I'm teaching, time out only means that everybody's gonna get punished. I'm not saying abuse the child, but I am saying we need to find other ways of addressing our students so that they're able to recognize positive and negative behaviors, and to further recognize that the positive ones should come with positive reinforcements that encourage. And he said, well, you teach at the exception. you don't teach at the rule. And I remember mentally exiting the class today and saying, you have nothing to teach me about working in the classroom hereafter. Because you want me to tell you the truth, brethren? If you think that my kids are the exception and you don't recognize that my exception gonna come and shoot you tomorrow when they don't know how to be behaving socially acceptable, we have a problem. He did finally come around, but the conversation had to take place where we had to teach the teachers how to deal with the new order of children. Because whether we want to admit it or not, especially with the current economic situation sweeping across the Caribbean, as rich as Trinidad is, and probably because Trinidad is that rich, to as poor as Guyana, Suriname, Jamaica, we are on the bottom leg of the US dollar. You and us fighting for the position. But
yes,
as hard as it want to be, we need to recognize that even in the interior, it's an internet and a McDonald's generation. And those are the influences that are bombarding our children daily. Personally, I think that's partly why they think suicide is the answer, because everybody now is learning to be stressed and to be stressing them left brace. But if that is the case, then what are we giving our teachers to use to work with the students to help them? A. B. I'm not saying that we have the wherewithal financially in the country to provide teachers with a better education. But no matter what grade they're in, no matter what subject they're officially employed to teach, all our educational staff end up playing the role of counselor at some point in their life. And if they have other issues that are bombarding their brain, are they going to be prepared to deal with your child over there who done giving me headache, and I can't take on your bacchanal, you know, because I don't have mine at home giving me thunder? We have to work with our teachers. We have to work with our youth. We have to work with our peer counselors. So it cannot be just school at the administrative or the teaching level. It also has to be with our young people. And that is when school, church, government, NGO, man on the street side, the whole everybody have to come back to the realization that it's a village that raised a child. It's not Hillary Clinton said so. She borrowed it from the African community. Sorry, we're talking drums, but yeah, she borrowed it from the African community. And until we come to the realization that all of us are stakeholders in this, because until that change come, it's going to be thunder for Guyana, it's going to be thunder for America, it's going to be thunder for Jamaica, it's going to be thunder for Suriname. Because guess what? If the Guyanese student leave here with the bad behavior, wherever else they go, it's going to be a problem. And that is why Trinidad don't want Jamaica in the country. That's why they give Guyana thunder when Guyana to come in the country. Because we not necessarily seeing that we have to be investing not only in the here, but in the beyond of here.
So I want to go a slightly different route with it.
Sure.
At an institutional level, yes, train your teachers to be able to spot the behaviors and provide the necessary guidance. But I also want us to be able to encourage student movements against bullying.
Oh yes.
Now, I'm not sure to what extent it's like in Guyana, but I know for Trinidad it's becoming a serious, serious problem. Once you are different, and I will open a can of worms here, Nikki Ashwood, and say, especially those who self-identified as gay, lesbian, or other.
Sexually other. That's your community that's most ostracized, and I would highly suspect that's the majority of your suicides in your 15 to 24. When you have that gender identity crisis or realization, and you realize I will never be accepted in this society, and there is no way people in my community are going to accept me the way I am, and that's their way out. So I would love for our churches as well as schools to be an open space, a safe space. So even if you feel like in your home or in your community that nobody will accept you, that peer group within your school, your second mother and father as your teachers and your counselors, they will be able to provide that safe space for you to speak about what is your new reality and help you get through it. And then it still comes back to training and preparing our folks, because I don't know that we are we're not even dealing with male-female sex in the church. And I don't know that we can therefore start touching on any other issue when that S word is a 4-letter word that we don't dare to touch. And then when you compound that with the Guyana issue of racial relations, which nobody talks about, but which is a painful, threatening reality. But I hear you, Sanya, and I'm really recognizing that the can of worms, we're going to have to deal with Miss Pandora and her box. But I think separate and apart from that, or probably in addition to that, is this whole business of violence in the region. Violence to self and violence to other. And therein lies some of the issue, because, alright, we have a sexual identity issue. But why is it that I feel that the easiest way out is to take my own life? Isn't part of it because I'm bullied? Isn't the bullying rooted in the fact that I am going to put you out? I am going to make your life physically and otherwise uncomfortable because I have power that you don't have. Guyana also has one of the highest rates of gender-based violence in the country. When we were discussing gender-based violence in Jamaica and had all the stakeholders put together at this one forum about 2 or 3 years ago, we discovered that the whole homosexual violence has to deal with the whole fact that the gender violence also has to do with the fact that folks need to prove that I'm not homosexual. So I take out my frustration on the other. The homosexual violence is due to the fact that if I don't boom bye bye butcher style, so I'm trying to keep my language fairly clean, if I don't move with the boom bye bye lifestyle, then I am going to be labeled as sympathetic or one of them, which means that again I am at risk physically, emotionally, and sometimes even socially. So perhaps there is a need for us to rewire, mental wires that is, the orientation of our culture. And I'm not talking now sexual orientation only. I'm talking about an orientation that says violence is not the way. Trinidad escaped most of it, but go to the Maroons in Suriname, go to the various revolts, including the one that brings us here today, aka the Cuffy revolt, rebellion. Go to the many Maroon revolts and rebellions in Jamaica and the slave revolts, and you'll realize that underpinning our community as a region is an ingrained system of violence. And the violence comes in our walk, it comes in our talk. And woe betide if you're one of those who are cursed with someone who willing to introduce it in the lifestyle. I don't know. When we can start changing that, then we can deal with the issues of homosexuality, of queer and sexually other. When we can start dealing with that, then we might find that people might not feel as hopeless as some of them feeling. When we start dealing with that, then maybe this whole race and one-upmanship will change. And I know you're probably saying this is about Guyana and she's talking about Jamaica, but I cannot help but look through the Jamaican lens. And when I talk, Sanya will tell you that in the whole region, I tell people, look here, Jamaica is what you should not want to be. Don't get me wrong, we have you saying, and I'm all to the world, but to the world is not all there is to us. And these days, unfortunately, we are the lowest level of devolution that you can find in the region as it comes to violence. And I'm finding that there is, unfortunately, further infusion of that negative violence creeping into the entire region. Part of it is in the music. Yes. Part of it is in this hopelessness that is married in, well, since I have no hope, I man look out for I own self. Don't look on me like that, because even if you was looking to help me, I reading it as you casting eyes and finger on me, so I gonna put out your lights. And as to you, you think you better than me, you have on glasses and my eyes sick. And we are so mired in that box. It is time for us to move outside of that, and it has to be all the stakeholders coming together, including my darling musical artists, especially the ones from home.
I hear you. So, let us look towards solutions. We've mentioned solutions all through the discussion, but I want to hear, what have you been doing in Trinidad? What have you been doing in Jamaica before we even begin to talk about what can be done in Guyana? So let the viewers know what work you've been involved in.
Right. Let's see. Well, I'll have to start to go institutionally. I'm currently serving as an elder within my church. So out of that, I'm able to reach my youth in my church as well as in 6 other churches in my region. And on top of that, all the Presbyterian churches in Trinidad and Tobago. So a lot of my work deals with empowerment of youth and dealing with these particular issues. So definitely dealing with violence, having those discussions about identity and loving yourself. That has been a theme running about 3 years now. Just getting our youth to that point of really appreciating all aspects of themselves. Along with that, I have been trying to challenge my own church as well as churches within Canacom to rise above the status quo, to not just be a country club for the rich and the famous and the saints
And the comfortable.
but to really be that hospital for the sick. And that's what I would want for my churches, and that's what I've been trying to preach and work towards. So really, from being this insular institution into being one of the community and reaching out and making the difference that we could. So it's not my own initiative, but I've been supporting one in Trinidad alongside our youth coordinator Simone Singh Saga, who has been engaging our youth in mission. So I have to say it outright, my church is very insular. So to make that movement into saying, you know what, we're not just here to have fun amongst ourselves, but we as youth, we don't have to be the recipients of help. We could be the ones going out and helping others. They went to plaster a house in Las Lomas. I'm sure none of them ever mixed concrete or cement or anything before. But they mixed and they enjoyed serving. They went out into the community and they offered meals and they shared a song with the people that they engaged with. We went out into the streets of San Fernando and shared food with others and engaged with a homeless shelter. We sang carols in the middle of November. Don't worry about it. It was, you know...
I saw the pictures.
Just being able to engage in those ways is how I've been working to just uplift our youth, to move past this any sense of self-pity into recognizing you do have power, and that power should and can be used to help those around you.
Have I actually helped anybody in Jamaica?
I'm sure you have.
At times I feel as though I don't do enough in Jamaica, because my work takes me to 14 denominations in almost 10 countries, and I also do work with the World Council of Churches and the World Communion of Reformed Churches, and we do a lot of collaborative work with the Council for World Mission, Caribbean region. So with that kind of a plate, I sometimes feel as though I am a peripheral partner rather than a physical presence. But I mentioned the church that my brother is lay pastor of, and that's Mount Pleasant United Church, which is a part of the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. For the greater part of the last 12 years, I've been a counselor chaplain for camp ministry, and it's only since 2012 that I've been not as actively involved in that. And I prefer to think of my ministry as a non-stationary one. So I am primarily accessible to my folk on Facebook. I am accessible by phone and whatever kind of medium they want to find me. I work with anybody who comes in my direction, actually. I don't think I'm a traditional pastor. No. I have voluntarily mentored young ministers. They don't have to be from my denomination. I have voluntarily invited myself in the life of my many children. I have now lost count of the number of children I have all over the world. I've never given birth. I not only invite myself in, but I do believe that I make myself available in such a way that they feel safe enough to speak with me. And I am the first to admit that while I like to pretend I'm young, I don't speak the language of young people anymore, but I think I make myself accessible enough, yeah, that my young people can speak to me. I have been partly involved, but not as actively as I could have, in several initiatives by virtue of being with Canacom in Jamaica. So the Young Adults in Action movement in Jamaica had a project, Stop, Think, Save, and it's a child sexual abuse awareness and prevention program. And we as Canacom, we provided assistance financially for them to get that campaign up and running, and every so often I will post on the site. I have also been involved in ensuring that the work of my Caribbean churches is broadcast as far and wide as I go, because I'm also a mover for gender violence, for ending gender violence, that is, with the World Council of Churches, along with Mr. Gleason Sete Job from Trinidad and Tobago. And as regional reps, we work with Sanya in particular, Simone, Ayana McCalman here, and several other young people like Pat Sheraton Bisnoth. I've done workshops in Guyana as part of a team, not as the presenter, and I'm not the kind who wishes to be in the very forefront. I am happy to help, because far often there are far better voices to do the work and to make the work happen. Just recently, and it didn't go off the way I wanted with the bang yesterday as the beginning of the 16 days of activism, but just recently I was speaking with my Jamaican youth in particular to say, hey, let's do this whole Real Men campaign, Real Men challenge, where you do a 1-minute video clip, and in the 16 days to overcome violence, yes, I'm asking y'all to do it too. In the 16 days to overcome violence, you take that 1-minute video clip, and it's males. I want the males to do it, and you just post it on Facebook, and you challenge somebody else to join you in it. And all you do at the end of the video clip is include the tagline, real men respect themselves, real men don't abuse women. And I remember Sanya challenging me and saying, why would you say real men respect themselves? And I said, I remember reading once where it says that if I respect myself, I don't have to hurt you to prove who I am. So if a real man can respect himself, he won't abuse women. And I've been trying to get that message out. I'm not going to say that it reached in the way of the video, but I am saying that it has made a difference even in my conversations with my young people. In the Caribbean, I have done a lot of work primarily with human trafficking, gender-based violence. I can't think of a church in Trinidad that I've been to where I haven't ended up with at least one child. And I think most of them recognize that I'm there for them if they need me. In Guyana, I will spot some people and I just figure that, hey, let's talk. I was in the US doing some promotion for Canacom the other day with the Presbyterian Church USA there, and I won't forget that the chaplain for the school says, oh, you're going to be part of a panel discussion, and I'm like, yes, I can do a panel discussion. Lord, give me the words that I will speak as this member of a panel. I get to the room and I hear the lady saying, oh, and our guest speaker is here, Reverend Ashwood. And I'm like, that don't sound like a panel. And I said, alright, we're going to play it by ear. And I did it. And I'm raising that because at the end of the event, there's this one girl in tears, and I can't get into her story because that's her story.
Yes.
But she bypasses her chaplain and she comes to me to speak with me, and then proceeds to let me know that, well, you just kind of talked about certain things that reflective of my life. And I'm like, yes, I know, I ain't do nothing. But she heard, or the Holy Spirit allowed her to hear, and by virtue of that, we have struck up a relationship where she is now beginning to see transformation. I remember speaking at a high school in the US where before going I was like, Lord Jesus, let me just tell you, I don't know why you bring me in this place, because see there now, them come tell me that me can't talk about Jesus, and me don't know how me going to talk to this group of students, and me can't put God in that equation, and if God can't go in the equation, I'm not talking. So even 5 minutes before I started, I am and having that kind of attitude. And then I heard, here's how you're gonna do it. And I start bopping, and I said, okay, before we start, how many of you know the song of the millennium, One Love? And you know it has that little part that says give thanks and praise unto Jah.
Yes.
And I slide in the Jah, and everybody in the school is singing, and nobody realized that we inserted God in the equation. But when it finishes, 2 students come to me and they're like, oh wow, can we have some way of being in touch with you, because we need you to help us to cope with some things that we are facing, and we're going and we're going and we're going. And then 2 days after that, I have left the school and I'm moving on, and one of the guidance counselors write me to say, oh, you know, the other children who didn't get to come to the event, they went to their teachers and they're like, so why wasn't our class invited to that event? And I think I'm saying all this to say, in essence, exactly what Sanya was saying earlier, that when we start talking and allowing our young people, allowing our old people, because people think old people don't have problems, you know, allowing our old people to recognize that somebody hears and that somebody cares, therein lies the root of our solutions. And I think I can safely say that that's what we are hoping to offer in our young adults reunion next year. And though it won't necessarily be open to all the Guyana public, there's a part of it that we're planning, and we can't give you too much of it because it's still in the planning stage. But watch out, Guyana, we coming! But part of it is going to be dealing with the issue of human trafficking. And my admin assistant and the team that she was working with were looking at this wonderful acronym, which I don't remember offhand, but it says don't be a victim, and it goes through every letter to show you how is it that you can stop yourself from being trafficked. And we're hoping that when we come to Guyana next year and we start interacting with the folks and doing the drama and the dance and the whatnot, and when we, for example, showcase Denham Stell's youth group, Ebenezer's youth group, and what they are doing in their community with the drama to bring awareness for human trafficking, y'all will realize that it's not just them foreign folks, but there is hope in Guyana, and that's the kind of thing that we want to do. So for me, yeah, I'll talk to you, but I still have to big up my peeps, because it's in the bigging up of the peeps, including you, that we're going to see the difference and recognize that the solution is in Guyana. We are only here to help you rub out the parts that bring the diamond in the midst of the coal.
So that is where we start for Guyana, empowering
and celebrating, because them other folks whose nations we shall not call by name are not the only ones who have a franchise on the diamond mines that are our young people.
Well, we've come to the end of our program. Oops. Thank you, Reverend Ashwood and Sanya, for being on African Drums and for discussing the state of youth in Guyana, as well as in Trinidad, Jamaica, and the rest of the Caribbean, because we are all connected and a lot of the issues that we face are the same.
Yes.
Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. This has been African Drums, the television organ of the Cuffy 250 Committee, an organization dedicated to the empowerment of the African Guyanese community through education and the encouragement of self-activity.
Amen.
Please like our Facebook page, Cuffy 250. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is also Cuffy 250, for videos of the show and for other events. Please also donate to the cause, and we look forward to hearing from you. If you have questions or comments, email us cuffy250gy@gmail.com. I'm a young person, and I'm also a Guyanese, so this program was dear to my heart, and I am looking forward to being a part of the solutions. I'm currently a part of the solutions,
yes,
and I'm looking forward to working with other young people in Guyana to make Guyana a better place and to make our young people feel that they are valued and that they are loved. Please do your part. Join the fight. Let us improve the state of the young people in Guyana. Thank you for watching. Please join us next week.